Donald Trump just wrapped up a screaming, collapsing call targeted at his biggest enemy right now, a Republican senator. Not only is Donald Trump seeing his MAGA base abandon him, but Congress is in an all-out revolt. That is why Donald Trump is attacking his own party as they strip him of his power. And he just set himself up with this call that has leaked for failure in more ways than one. Not just his power being taken away from him right now by Republicans, but his power diminishing completely as his term collapses. We're going to get into it all because we got a lot of updates. They're all bad for Donald Trump. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into the many ways that this call just leaked in is blowing up Donald Trump's term in so many different facets, we got to start with the reason why. And it is Donald Trump trying to expand his authoritarian project via a war with Venezuela that Bernie Sanders broke down all of the important details of right here. He's not the only one challenging Donald Trump. Republican senators are as well. But we got to start with Bernie.
The President of the United States does not have the right to unilaterally take this country into war, even against a corrupt and brutal dictator like Maduro. The United States does not have the right, as Trump stated this morning, to run Venezuela. Congress must immediately pass a war powers resolution to end this illegal military operation and reassert its constitutional responsibilities. Trump's attack on Venezuela will not make the United States and the world safer. Quite the contrary. This brazen violation of international law gives a green light to any country on earth that may wish to attack another nation to seize their resources or change their governments. This is the horrific logic of force that Putin used to justify his brutal attack on Ukraine. Trump and his administration have made it clear that they want to revive the Monroe Doctrine, a belief that claims that the United States has the right to dominate the affairs of the hemisphere. They have spoken openly about controlling Venezuela's oil reserves, the largest in the world. Let's make no mistake about it. This is rank imperialism. It recalls the darkest chapters of U.S. interventions in Latin America, which have left a terrible legacy. It will and should be condemned by the democratic world. Trump campaigned for president on an America First platform. He claimed to be the peace candidate. Well, at a time when 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, when our healthcare system is collapsing, when people throughout this country cannot afford housing, and when artificial intelligence threatens millions of jobs, it is time for the president to focus on the crises facing this country and end the military adventurism abroad. Trump is failing in his job to run the United States of America. He should not be trying to run Venezuela.
So Donald Trump wants to focus all our energy, all our efforts, all our resources on Venezuela to extract oil that we won't be able to get for at least a decade, that won't lower the price of gas in any substantial way, and might not actually come to fruition, but certainly will boost the stock price of ExxonMobil to the benefit of a handful of wealthy executives. I don't think that that sounds like a good plan. And it doesn't even sound like a good plan to Republican senators who are pushing back on Donald Trump's idea, as he said to the New York Times, that international law has no consequence on him, that he's guided only by his own morality, a point that J.D. Vance also tried to make when he said this right here. And it's what set up this screaming call from Trump.
Technicality than any disagreement in policy. If you look at the people who actually voted, every single one of them have supported the administration's plan. Second of all, as the president, I believe himself has already said, every president, Democrat or Republican, believes the War Powers Act is fundamentally a fake and unconstitutional law. It's not going to change anything about how we conduct foreign policy over the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months, and that'll continue to be how we approach things. Go ahead.
So Vance is also saying, lying, mind you, that it is unconstitutional to check Donald Trump's power on the world stage, that he can do whatever he wants. He's the God King. He can launch invasions. He can start wars. He can drop bombs. He can commit acts that violate international law, and it doesn't matter. It's totally fine, believing that everyone would back up that claim. But it's not happening. Several Republicans voted alongside every Democrat to limit Donald Trump's ability to just go to war. The War Powers Act in the Senate, which just passed and is moving forward. And Donald Trump is furious about it, which is why he got in a screaming phone call with Susan Collins that has a lot of implications for his term. But let's get into the article that covered it first. Trump 79 explodes at GOP senator in profanity-filled call. Donald Trump laid into Republican Senator Susan Collins in an expletive-laden phone call after she voted against one of his top priorities. The president reportedly made a profanity-laced call to the vulnerable Republican senator on Thursday, sources told The Hill. Collins was one of the 5 GOP senators to join Democrats in advancing a resolution on the War Powers Act from the committee to the floor, which passed in a 52-47 vote earlier in the day. He was very mad about the vote, the source told The Hill. Very mad, very hot. The resolution would block the president's ability to use military force against Venezuela following the U.S. capture of the country's president, Nicolas Maduro. This throws a wrench in Trump's plans to seize Venezuela's oil. The source told The Hill that the president basically read her the Riot Act in a phone call that came out of the blue. Collins' office confirmed to The Hill that the call took place, but did not include any additional details on what the president said. The Daily Beast reached out to the senator's representatives and the White House for comment. In addition to Collins, Republican Senators Rand Paul, Lisa Murkowski, Josh Hawley, and Todd Young also voted to advance the War Powers Resolution. The move made Trump irate. He posted at length about the 5 conservative lawmakers on his social media platform. Republicans should be ashamed of the senators that just voted with Democrats in attempting to take away our powers to fight and defend the United States of America, Trump wrote. Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Rand Paul, Josh Hawley, and Todd Young should never be elected to office again. Not going to give Susan Collins too much credit because Susan Collins doesn't deserve credit, but Susan Collins has definitely infuriated Donald Trump. Okay, so this matters for so many different reasons. One, Donald Trump will not be able to carry out his plan to own and run, or I guess Stephen Miller will own and run Venezuela if we see the passage of this War Powers Resolution. It is also bringing more attention to the fact that Donald Trump has broken his no new wars policy, his pretend anti-intervention stance, which was always bullshit from the beginning, and we tried to warn people, but that's okay. But this has now become an ideological issue within the party that there is a real split on. And this is something that I've talked about a lot as we look forward to what the Republican Party is going to be after Donald Trump, which is something that the Republican Party is already actively considering. It is something that you hear from Rand Paul and Thomas Massie a lot to their Republican colleagues. Start thinking about life after Trump. Start planning for life after Trump. And if you're planning for life after Trump, and if you're planning to be anti-war, anti-intervention, and anti-endless spending on state building for the sake of oil executives in ExxonMobil, yet you should want to come out against this. And there are a couple of Republican senators who are maybe eyeing themselves a 2028 run. I'm thinking about Ted Cruz. I'm thinking about a couple others who maybe want to get on board with Josh Hawley, want to get on board with Rand Paul and Susan Collins. But Susan Collins is the most interesting element of this. The fact that she is leaking, that she is sharing this call, Donald Trump screaming, expletives flying, losing his mind, attacking her. Why is that so important? Why would Susan Collins want to share that? One, to maybe ingratiate herself to a couple of the moderates in the state of Maine who she relies on to have consistently won re-election for so long. But this time is different. And I know that's how it felt 6 years ago in a race against Susan Collins, but this is actually different because of the candidate she is running against. And that is Graham Plattner, a real progressive talking about affordability, a veteran who has experience with forever wars that destroy the men and women who serve, fighting on behalf of causes that only exist in the public perception to enrich the wealthiest of the wealthy already, to expand the military-industrial complex, to make more money for fucking ExxonMobil. Graham Plattner has lived that life, and he is talking about improving the material conditions of working people. He is talking about affordability. He is talking about systemic changes in our government. He is an outsider. He is not taking money from AIPAC. He is not taking money from the oil lobby. He is not taking money from the crypto lobby. He wants Chuck Schumer ousted from leadership, right? He is not his puppet. He was not handpicked by Chuck Schumer. In fact, no one has been more combative towards any Democratic primary challenger than Chuck Schumer towards Graham Plattner, and that's about the biggest endorsement you need right now. Chuck Schumer, who, when asked if we should abolish ICE, said, well, I just don't know yet. Maybe we should talk about the reform. No. I kind of sounded like JFK there. Was that my Chuck Schumer voice? I got to work on that. Because quite frankly, we do Trump. We do it so well. And I said, wow, that's so well. And oil, we're going to take, so we can work on Chuck Schumer. But if you need to know who you should vote for in any of these primaries, and there's a lot of them. If you're looking at Minnesota, I've talked about Minnesota a lot. Peggy Flanagan is not the one getting the crypto money. She doesn't want it. Angie Craig running in that race, also Chuck Schumer's preferred candidate. If you want Schumer gone, you have to also get rid of the people who will back him. I know we're deviating a little bit, but this is important, and I'm going to close. I have a thought on this. If you want to get rid of Chuck Schumer, you have to get rid of the people that back him. Angie Craig is one of them. You got to be backing Peggy Flanagan in Minnesota. The only person in that race, only Democrat, only real Democrat, who will say that we need to abolish ICE because reform is not enough for a murderous, unaccountable agency. Let's be entirely clear about that. But Graham Plattner, why is this such a big deal that Donald Trump is going to war with Susan Collins, aside from the fact that this is an incredible candidate that I suggest you check out, that you get on board with if you're in main support, and leave a comment. I would love to say thank you for backing Graham Plattner. Why is this such a big deal? Because Donald Trump knows he's losing the House, but the Senate is something different. Donald Trump feels good about the Senate. Donald Trump feels positive. And if Donald Trump has the Senate, Donald Trump can make sure that the Supreme Court stays radically conservative forever if he's got it for the next 2 years. We could see, Alito or Thomas retirements. This would reshape the country fundamentally, continue to reshape the country fundamentally. And that's something we have the ability to stand in the way of if we take back the Senate. That is something we have the ability to stand in the way of. It's going to take big wins in Nebraska, in Texas, in North Carolina, in Maine, possibly in Iowa. There's a lot of places where we can win. A lot of Ohio, there's places but Maine is going to be the big one to start. That is where we have to win. And I'm saying we got to be backing Graham Plattner. That is the guy. And it is not just that he has the best chance of winning that race, because he does. Polling shows he's got the best chance of winning that race. Also my preferred candidate. But also, in the same way that people looked at Zohran Mamdani, and they said, oh, Zohran's ideas, pie in the sky, can't get him done. On the 8th day of his administration, universal child care, what many people said would be the most difficult plank in his platform, I can't speak, to get done, boom. What's up? Universal child care, it's happening. You said it couldn't be done. We need to continue to elect progressives who want to see structural change if we want to make that structural change possible. If you don't want Chuck Schumer running the show, we need people who will oust him from leadership and make real material changes to the lives of working people and reshape this country.